party who knew about the conspiracy to steal taxpayers' money from the KCMC. I know about how a senior member of the PNP who speaks as if he is most righteous than anybody else in this country, been involved with underage girls and how they went at length to cover up their tracks.
Lawrence Rowe said that he's marked for death, Jamaica. You know, that's what he said. And it's so frightening. So frightening to us because at the end of the day, we saw that the Gleaner put out a report that Lawrence Rowe was charged. Now, we have heard Lawrence Rowe's side of the story. And it seems as if, you know, they are trying to rile this man up. They're trying to provoke this man to the point to where, you know, him retaliate. And if some unaliving go on, then them paint the suit as a troublemaker already. So, in a unholy, cynical way, it will be justifiable because they have painted him as a troublemaker. In the newspaper, yes, he's charged for assaulting an old lady. But then again, what is the actual story? Why it has to be the lady side alone? Get the full story, then report it accordingly. But the sad truth is, as I said, investigative journalism. These journalists will get people in problem nowadays because they're not reporting the news correctly, so people can decipher it. Now they're marking this youth as a troublemaker. A troublemaker Jamaica. And now nationwide basically get the next side of the story. And now you're seeing that, listen, this man is not a troublemaker. This youth is a victim. This youth is like a prey. And they are the predator. Want to get rid of him, want to shut him up, you know, want to intimidate him, want to scare him, and probably unalive him. And he said it, not me. Have a listen, Jamaica.
Lawrence Rowe joins us now. Good morning to you.
Hi, good morning to you and your listeners.
Thank you so much for joining us here on Nationwide this morning. Mr. Rowe, if you could, is this someone you're familiar with?
Yes, the elderly lady is someone who I'm very familiar with. When she went overseas, I slept at her house, you know, stayed there to protect her surroundings. She's also the, what do you call it, aunt-in-law of the gentleman whom I had the altercation with in last month.
So is it that the two incidents, what happened in this particular incident is related? Was there a breakdown in the relationship? What happened?
Well, let me state that, you know, this strategy by the PNP is not new. It has been ongoing from Michael Manley days, right? When you fall out of grace with them, they tend to use women and elderly to provoke you, so as to create an appearance to John and Jane public that, you know, you are beating up and marginalized people. So I want to say that I believe that I was set up.
Why would you say this is a strategy by the PNP? Why would you say that?
So the PNP knows that I have influence in the constituency, and part of their strategy is to paint me as a troublemaker. And I want to say that first, the lady came into my face and threw water on me, and I defended myself. Secondly, the man who encouraged her to carry out the act against me also assaulted me. The lady then complained of assault, right? But luckily, I still have the footage of what transpired. And I am of the view that the two individuals who were used to attack me will be charged imminently. And, you know, if they have not been charged already, hence, you know, there will be a case and cross case.
What you're saying here is pretty serious, Mr. Rowe, that you're saying this is a strategy by the PNP and that you're being targeted and these people were sent. How do you know that? What evidence do you have to support the accusation you're making this morning?
Well, firstly, she's a member of the People's National Party, that elderly lady. And the gentleman who attacked me, his mother is a member of the People's National Party. I have also footage of the young man threatening me after the PMP had an activity following that incident. On the evening of that incident on my road, they came with their music truck and they behaved in a particular way, intimidator way. In fact, he came on my road and tore down green flags on the day. So they are well intended with their machinations.
Hold it for me there, Lawrence. Lawrence, hold it for me there. We're going to go for a break, and when we come back, we'll have more. We're back with It's Nationwide this morning. We have Lawrence Rowe, who is the former PMP caretaker for the Central Kingston constituency, now a Jamaica Labour Party supporter, speaking to us about what would be an alleged assault that would have occurred. And Lawrence, you're just continuing. I'm going to allow you to pick up on that point, and then I have a question for you.
Yes, I just want to make a point that, upon learning of what the Gleaner reported, I inquired of senior police personnel, why is it being reported that I am the only one charged? I then visited the Almontown police station and spoke with the station officer, who assured me that the police will act dutifully and that there was a misunderstanding. This morning, just after 6 a.m., I was contacted by the Almontown police station and informed that both individuals have also been charged.
Okay, so you're saying both individuals have been charged, but I want to backtrack a little bit, Lawrence.
Just
Rowe.
before you go there, Sandra, when you say both, you mean the elderly woman and who else?
And the gentleman who encouraged her to attack me and who in fact also assaulted me, he has been charged.
And that's from the June incident in Almontown?
Correct.
Okay.
All right, so we're backtracking a little bit, Lawrence Rowe, to talk about this idea of you sleeping in this woman's house, ensuring when she's away that you're taking care of her property and things, etc. What would have then led to the breakdown in relationship for it to be a case where she's getting up to throw water at you?
Well, that is a very interesting question, The elderly woman, I can tell you, when news broke that I will be replaced, was also on interviews stating that no Lawrence, no vote. Mm-hmm. And weeks following that, her position changed. She's supporting her party, and we were still good. We still ran our jokes, I would still visit her house, and we have cordial relationship. And then, all of a sudden, the incident with her nephew-in-law, and she being contracted by, the PMP to prepare meals for their events, I guess those contributed to the strained relationship.
Well, just to switch gears a little bit, Lawrence Rowe, you were on a platform on Sunday evening, I gather, and it's all over the media now. We, of course, want to understand, what would have been your own inclinations, your drive. You'd have said some things on the political platform, but to now be openly on platforms speaking out as now a switched allegiance, we call them turncoats, Tana, to the Jamaica Labour Party, and being so prudent in your switch and so outright to go up on the political platform and give such a speech on Sunday evening.
And your question is?
Yes, my question is what would have led to that, led to your now public showing and your speeches as a member of the Jamaica Labour Party?
Well, let me start by saying that I've always been an advocate for my constituency. I've always wanted it to be developed. I have had issues with the PMP in terms of, their non-performance in the constituency. I came up the ranks as, group member, PD worker, divisional vice chair, constituency secretary, and I have always maintained my advocacy that I want to see development here. I want a clinic somewhere in Allman Town. There needs to be a community center, at executive meetings here in the constituency or at the regional level or at the National Executive Council, the PMP. I have always raised, my voice and my advocacy. So over the years, having been so strong in my advocacy, and I have always carried out myself on a non-political basis in Central Kingston. PMP and JLP alike, they have a good relationship with me. I opened my home as an internet cafe before, assisting many, preparing for CXCs and their school-based examinations, So when I realized that I was not getting that kind of representation from the PMP, I then challenged Ronald Rowe in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
The conference was discontinued at the time. Paul Burke was the general secretary, and we were only able to get a conference in 2018. And it was by then now Julian became general secretary, and it was reported that Ronald Rowe defeated me by 14 votes. I requested a recount, and that was flatly rejected by Julian Robinson, who was the then General Secretary and an ECJ commissioner, right? And following that, 7 months later, a selection process was opened. Ronnie was told in one certain terms that he cannot enter the process. There were issues between myself and Ronnie's regime, and I made it abundantly clear to the PMP and supporters in Central Kingston that I am not supporting the continuation of that regime. And that election in 2020 saw me supporting the JLP in the constituency. When the PMP realized that I was very serious about not supporting Imani, I was asked to go to Eastern St. Thomas initially. The arrangement was not made there, and then I was asked by the then General Secretary of the PMPYO to support Crystal Tomlinson's bid in West Rural St. Andrew, and I was placed in the Redis division. However, I have maintained that I will not be supporting Ronnie's regime in Central Kingston, and I voted against it in 2020. So following that incident following my position in 2020, I applied to represent the PMP in 2022, 2023, thereabout. I went through a formal process where some of these matters did in fact came up. I went through the integrity committee, the appraisal committee of the region, and then I was put before the delegates. And they approved me. I received over 60% of the vote on a group system that was primarily built by Ronnie and Imani. So people in the PMP were acting strange when I say that I supported Donovan in 2020 are real hypocrites, because I never did how I feel. Okay. In terms of my strong advocacy on the platform, when I supported Mark Rowling, I saw him as this successful businessman. And I said, the country needs a steady hand, some steady hands in stabilizing our economy and so on and so forth. And I remember the role he played under the Portia Simpson Miller-led administration with, record legislation being passed under strict IMF, under IMF restrictions and so on and so forth. But having seen how he has dealt with my situation, and I am yet to get correspondence from the party, on the real basis on which I was discarded, I then started to, observe his other reactions.
Mm-hmm.
Case in point, the rural school bus system. I mean, crime is on the low, and I've never heard the opposition commended the government for their role and involvement. And when, crime was out of control every day, we hammered the Minister of National Security. And, till one point, we threatened the minister, the commissioner, and gave him 3 months to act. And now that, the country is heading in the right direction, a responsible opposition and a government in waiting would give commendation to the government and then add, strategies how they think can improve on what currently exists. But all I am hearing is doom and gloom. All I am hearing is time come. All I am hearing is that to kick out those who are not for us. And that is not how you, govern a country. I have issues with his leadership. I have issues with, how the PMP is conducting itself. And as an advocate, I am going to speak out on it. And I must state that I do not need the GLP's platform to raise my advocacy. Because when I spoke out against the issues at the KCMC, it was never on a GLP platform. Mm-hmm. That was Lawrence Rowe responding to the issues, facing the country.
And Lawrence, in your constituency, specific areas of central Kingston, do you believe you still hold strong favor among PNP supporters and will be able to sway them to vote for Donovan Williams in the upcoming general election?
What I will say to you, what happened on Sunday, that is the largest JLP gathering in central Kingston ever. That was the largest gathering. And we saw people who would never normally attend any political function coming out, expressing their support that they are choosing Jamaica and that they are going to continue the impact, including members of the PNP, current registered members of the PNP.
Mm-hmm. We are going to watch the space and see how this one plays out in central Kingston, where Donovan Williams, the incumbent, is going up against Steve McGregor. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Lawrence Rowe, former PNP caretaker.
I just want to make another
Kingston.
point.
Go ahead.
Since leaving the People's National Party and watching the reaction of some constituents in central Kingston and the information that I have on individuals in the PNP, I know that I am marked for death, right? And I am calling on the Commissioner of Police, to put mechanisms in place to assist with protecting my life. I know about their underhanded dealings, including how they have been treating with the resources at the KCMC to fund campaigns. And I know at least 3 members of the party who knew about the conspiracy to steal taxpayers' money from the KCMC. I know about how a senior member of the PNP who speaks as if he is most righteous than anybody else in this country been involved with underage girls and how they went at length to cover up their track, including hiring people to intimidate those who the girls confided in. He was protected by the party, and I will not say more at this time, but I know that I am marked for that because people in Central Kingston respect me.
And just to say, Lawrence, and these are matters that you have reported to the police or the relevant authorities to investigate.
Yes.
All right.
And I just want to caution the PMP that I will not be silent. Not now, not ever.
Lawrence Rowe, the former PNP caretaker for Central Kingston. Going to take a break here on NTM and come back with more.